My life as a guitar maker, as a guitar builder, started in 1967 when I met Edgar Munch. I worked with him for many years, on a part-time basis, and he taught me pretty well all the basics that needed to build guitars. And he was a great man and became obviously my mentor. Him and several others, but he was the first one. He taught me the basics of guitar building, and which are a process that I use even today. Working with him was an experience simply because he was working alone with his wife. His wife did the painting and he did all the woodworking, and so I had the chance to be side by side with him for a long time, and this was a great opportunity that not many people have. With Edgar, what I learned the most is how to use hand tools, because he didn't have any machines or all kinds of, he had very basic hand planes, chisels, and not much else, even for cutting, binding, or doing all that. It was pretty well all done by hand. And this, or shaping, for example, taking a spruce top or rosewood back and sides and taking it down to a final thickness. I learned that right from the beginning, and today most people that learn guitar building, that doesn't happen. What happens is they have machines or they buy the wood already processed, but to actually process the wood it's quite a job. And finally he moved back to Germany, and that was the end of that period. After the departure of Edgar Munch, here I am in Toronto, and have to make a decision at this point. What am I going to do? Do I continue making guitars, or is this only a hobby? So I decided to get a small shop. At first it was at home, and then, a few years later, moved into a building and then had the first apprentice and started building guitars. And at that point, I left my job as an auto mechanic, and that was the beginning. And that was in 1967, 1968 period. In 1977, after going to Vancouver Island, on several trips, I decided to move there. The biggest reason was wood, because I could buy, that's where the cedar was, that's where the spruce was, and it was easy access for me. And if you don't have any wood, you can't build any guitars. And in Toronto, I didn't have access to that as readily as I did in British Columbia. And I love British Columbia. We decided in 1983 that Vancouver Island was too small for us and too restricted. So we decided to move to Vancouver. And in Vancouver, it took 3 moves in order to settle down on Cordoba with a 30,000 square foot building, which allowed us to produce the guitars that were needed to be produced. And allowed us also at the same time to start producing electric guitars. The peak of the company in Canada occurred in, I believe, 1999, where we had the most employees. We had many employees. I believe it was over 150 at that time. We were making over 50 guitars a day, and we had a huge demand. It was a lot of guitars. In 2001, I made a big decision, and that decision was to open another factory in America. The reason for that is 50% of our sales came from America, and then we had the problem with the border, and it became very complicated with fish and wildlife, with all kinds of other reasons. So moving to California was a good thing, and so we went down there and then opened a factory. People that buy guitars from us will not buy a guitar of mass production. It's a piece of art and that they're buying. And that's what I think the future is. I'm not interested, I was, but I'm no longer interested in producing large amount of guitars, I want to build great guitars. I want to build guitars for musicians. They are the one that support us. We can make guitars, but not in large volume. It's not the same. You know, when you make a guitar by hand, and that's what we do, we use machines to help us, but the reality is the guitars are built by hand. I don't want to take the world over making one guitar at a time. What I want to do is make the best guitar. Obviously, the most important item in the guitar is wood. Acquiring wood is an experience, and it's not as easy as most people think it is. In order for me to get wood, I have to travel all around the world, you know, especially like Indian rosewood out of the jungles of India. And traveling there and making selection of wood is really quite a job. And this is what I do the best of. The same thing with mahogany, the same thing with spruce. You know, I have to travel to Switzerland, I have to travel everywhere. Wherever there's wood, I travel and I get it. And I search, always searching for new wood. For example, silver oak is a wood that I acquired in India. And I got some and tested it, and we made our 45th anniversary guitar with this wood. It's one of the best tone woods one can get. I don't buy anything without selecting it myself. Everything I buy, even spruce, either my son John will go and inspect the logs, or I will inspect the log, but nothing is purchased without selection. This is the most critical thing for guitar building, is every piece of wood that goes into the guitar has been inspected by one of us. When you buy a Laravee guitar, you're buying, number one, you're buying a legacy, because it's not like others. It's very special and unique. And it's built by a family, not only individual workers. The whole family is involved in the construction of the guitar in one form or another. At the moment, my wife works in the company, and both my sons. John, which is the oldest son, he ran the Canadian company for 13 years. You know, he ran that as the general manager. Took care of all the responsibilities, some of the wood buying. Matthew, my other son, he's the general manager of the American plant. We all have a specialty, but all of us are guitar builders. Both my sons they can do anything, work any machine, they can do anything. They learned it from the beginning. Johnny used to make wooden guitars when he was just a little guy. They were brought up in the factory. I have my grandson. Ben is 10 years old. He likes to drive the forklift truck. He's the new generation. Laravees will always have their hands on the guitar. You know, this goes not only today, not tomorrow, because we are Laravees and we are guitar builders. We're not office people. You know, we're people that work with our hands directly on the guitar. And that, I think, is really important. One day you can be the CEO, the next day you're sanding bodies. If your name is on that guitar, you're going to pay attention to it. You know, that is the most critical part. This is what a real family business is. The future of Laravee guitars, to me, I think is very exciting. To have spent 50 years of my life designing, producing guitars, it's a great feeling to know that my children will take over and produce guitars for generations to come. So the work that I've done is by far not wasted. It is something. It's not like working somewhere and then you retire. That's the reason I can't retire, because we want Laravee guitars to continue for generations and generations. And I feel that the popularity of guitars, even though it has its up and down, it always comes back, because the guitar is one of the most versatile instrument, in the sense that you can walk down the street with it. You can do so many things with it. No matter what happens in the world, there will always be music. And if it's not the guitar as we know it today, it will be maybe a new design that we will come up with. I don't know. I haven't reached that point yet. The guitar will never go away. I would never retire. I mean, what would I do, number one? And number two, even though as I get older, I'm still in very good condition. I'm 70 years old. I'm in very good condition for somebody that age. And it has a lot to do with the fact that I work like I do in the factory. I don't sit in an office. I have an office, but I don't sit in it. I take naps in it. That's what I do at lunchtime. You know, I'm very active in the factory. They need this cut, that sanded. That's what I do. I go in there and I fill in the blank spot. And I'm still the designer. I do a lot of designing. Giving up the company when you're the founder and you took it right from nothing, from zero, and then to have a company the size that we have today, it's very difficult to just take the reins and give it away. It's difficult, but it's not something that I know I have to do it. And I'm doing it little by little, you know. They would like it faster, but I'm doing it slowly. You know, that's the way, that's my way. And I'm sure by the time I get 80, I'm not going to want to be behind a bandsaw cutting wood. And the reason I'm still really involved in the company as I am, it's because if I see something wrong, I want to correct it. And I walk up and down the shop 100 times a day looking for problems. And then I'll pull one of my sons aside and I'll say, you see, look at this problem. So when I'm gone, he'll do the same.